My brother-in-law drunkenly pushed me off a golf cart he was recklessly driving on Halloween, causing my wife and my baby daughter to fall too. His family wants us to get over it for the holidays. As the title says, we're being expected to get over what happened so my mother-in-law can have a normal holiday season. Me, 35M, and my wife, 34F, arrived at my sister-in-law's house after trick-or-treating with our daughters. They live in a big enough neighborhood where you have to take a golf cart to go from house to house. The first thing that could have avoided all this was speaking up about the golf cart being overcrowded. I got on, and my sister-in-law, who was driving at the time, started complaining about how the cart was leaning. She did this for a few minutes before my brother-in-law came over from their family's other golf cart. I offered to drive, but they ignored me, they heard me, made eye contact, everything. To help balance the cart, I stood on the side, hanging onto the roof. Everything was fine until the drive back. My wife was anxious about my Bill's driving, and he wouldn't stop, no matter how much my wife, and her sister asked him to. My wife and I got off at one point because we thought he was going to hit something. He knew it wouldn't, but we had no idea since we are not familiar with their golf course. We got back on, and my wife started to panic more while holding our daughter. My Bill then reached over, grabbed my shirt, and started pushing and pulling me to mess with her, causing me to fall off the cart. I landed, rolled over, looked back, and saw my wife fall off while holding our daughter. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt, but at that moment, I had no idea, and I saw red. I'm a nurse, so I quickly assessed my wife, who was freaking out, and confirmed she had no major injuries. My still had my daughter, and I took her, noticing bruising and scrapes on her head, arms, and legs. I told my wife we needed to get her to the hospital ASAP. We got back to the house, packed up, and left. On the way, my mill called and told us to come back, saying we didn't need to go to the hospital. I yelled at my wife to hang up, as she was having a panic attack and blaming herself for what happened. Everything came back okay at the hospital, and we were discharged. The next day, my wife talked to her parents and told them things would need to be different, and we needed some time away until we felt ready. My Bill showed up at our house unannounced the next day. He came in, said sorry, and told me I could say whatever I needed to him. I told him everyone who knows him knows this situation wouldn't be handled the same way if I had done this to his wife and daughter. He broke someone's jaw at a bachelor party last year for saying something about his daughter and was sued. He denied that and didn't have much else to say. Later that night, my wife's parents showed up. After a bit, they started telling us that because it's family, we have to get over it and shouldn't break up the family over this. I repeated what I'd said to my Bill and added that I felt disrespected in general. My Sil and Bill have a ton of money, and my in-laws don't treat my wife and me with the same respect they give them. My Mill has made comments about my job and income in front of family and friends, and my Bill has threatened me physically before and constantly talks down about my job and intelligence. My Phil was the only one I hadn't had issues with, until that night. We went back and forth about how it was out of line for them to come into our house and defend my Bill, but it went nowhere. I told them that if anyone else on the cart had fallen, they probably would have sued my Bill, and my Phil lost it. He started yelling at my wife, as if it was her fault we mentioned a lawsuit. I told him to direct it at me, because that thought did cross my mind. I said the only thing my Bill cares about is money, and I wanted him to hurt as much as I have. He could have killed my wife and daughter, and no amount of money could bring them back. After a few more minutes, they left. I told them I'm not suing because of the issues it would cause in the family, but I also said my family is very unhappy with them for both the incident and their response. I haven't spoken to them since, and they haven't reached out to me directly to see how I'm doing. Our holidays are going to be different, but my Mill is giving my wife a hard time about the new plans. We're not doing the usual traditions her mom insists on. My wife and I have talked about needing to meet with her sister and Bill to address this, but we don't know how to go about it. My wife hasn't left the house since, because she doesn't want people to notice her or our daughter's wounds. She's seeing a therapist and just saw a psychiatrist because she's been anxious and feels like she's going crazy. I've told her that no one is blaming her, and she did nothing wrong.